What's up, everyone? It's November 3rd, 2021. And in this video, we're going to talk a lot about the World Series that wrapped up last night. In Game 6, as I explained a couple weeks ago, I might not do a full decode on the game itself because I really already did that decode during my video on the death of Colin Powell, which is linked in the description below. So all of that holds true as far as why it was the Braves this year coming through. That video explains how it's all connected to the solar eclipse code. And rather hilariously, the most valuable player of the World Series wound up being Jorge Soler, whose name looks alarmingly like the word solar. Furthermore, this guy wears number 12, which is the number that the city of Atlanta shares with the word eclipse in Gematria. Total solar eclipse equals 1212. And last night's game was 10 months and 20 days after the last total eclipse. We're going to talk about how the World Series this season is connected to a number of other events throughout the world, particularly this visit from President Joe Biden with the Pope, his first trip to the Vatican and his first meeting with the head of the Catholic Church, and how it also is connected to the death of Michael Johnson, the son of Ernie Johnson, a sports broadcaster on Turner Network Television, who himself is the son of a Braves player who won the World Series with the franchise back in 1957. Now, this one I actually did a video on. If you check my channel, I've been working on a different type of video recently, something a little bit shorter, a little bit of music behind it. The idea is that these videos will be easier to share with other people. So I was looking at my channel and realized, hey, I haven't made a video that's less than 15 minutes in like months and months. And as much as I enjoy talking about numerology and sharing this with everybody who, is clearly intrigued by it and wants to learn more, I do want to share this with more people too, and I think that'll be a more effective way. So keep the lookout for those videos as well. Of course, they are pretty time consuming. So over the next week or so, I know I've said this before, but I will be opening up a Patreon now that I have some content that I really feel good about sharing with everybody and moving this work forward. So shout out to everybody who jumped in early on the chat today. I don't know who Henry Ruggs III is, but maybe we'll look at it if we have time. We got a lot to cover today. For those of you who may be new to the channel, we talk about numerology with a focus on the language of Gematria, otherwise pronounced Gematria. And this Kabbalistic practice assigns a number to each letter in the alphabet. And on this channel, we look at really only the simplest ciphers, starting with the alphabetic order and the reduction, also known as the Pythagorean method. You'll also see the reverse and reverse reduction methods displayed. These are considered complementary to the alphabetic order. And there's a couple of large number ciphers as well, particularly this Latin or Jewish cipher, also known as Agrippa's key. And for years I've been demonstrating how vitally important this cipher is to the English language. So you'll see a lot of this as well throughout the course of the video. So where to begin? There's a lot to unpack. I guess the first thing that I'll mention is that my original prediction mentioning the Braves, and I pointed out how there's an intriguing riddle. Well, I didn't make any other posts about any other teams having an intriguing riddle. This was all about the year 89. And it starts with the fact that this year we had a Field of Dreams game in Major League Baseball. Field of Dreams was released in the year 89. And it stars Kevin Michael Costner, whose name sums to 89 in reduction. The final score of that game was 8-9. And then the following month, we had a no-hitter thrown by Corbin Burns of the Milwaukee Brewers. And that was a record-setting no-hitter because it was the 9th of the season, so it was a big one. It was also Major League Baseball's 314th no-hitter, a big pie tribute. But one of the main actors of Major League is named Corbin Burnson. And how wild is it that the Brewers had a pitcher named Corbin Burns who pitched a no-hitter in Cleveland. And this movie, which features the Cleveland Indians, was actually filmed in the city of Milwaukee, the team that Corbin Burns plays for. So there's been a strong 89 riddle. And when you look at the 89 World Series, you see other things that stand out. For instance, Tony La Russa was the manager of the winning team, the Oakland A's, that year. And La Russa came out of retirement after a decade this year to coach the Chicago White Sox to their first division title in 13 years. The losing team in that World Series was the San Francisco Giants, who came out of nowhere this year to win 107 games. And 107 stood out because the word earthquake equals 107. And there was an earthquake that delayed this World Series in 1989. But the riddle was not for the San Francisco Giants this year, because instead, if you go back 107 years ago, you get to 1914, which was the first championship for the Atlanta Braves franchise, back when they were the Boston Braves, which has Gematria of 107. As far as the number 89, Atlanta Braves equals 89 in Gematria. This was also 32 years ago. And Atlanta, Georgia has Gematria of the 32nd prime number, 131. This is all connected to the number of wins that the Braves have had in their franchise history as well. And let's just take a quick peek at this. Like we usually do on this channel, every time there's a championship coming up, I always break down the numbers into a table to help me understand what the riddle is. And this year it was very clear when I looked at how many Braves wins the Braves would have if they were to win the World Series. So here we see they have 10,920 wins now, all time in their franchise, adding their regular season and playoff victories. On top of that, this is Brian Snitker's 463rd win since he took over as manager of the team. And these numbers are highly pertinent to the Eclipse code. Eclipse 192, like 10,920. And then the 463 is like total eclipse, 463. The Braves won the World Series this year, a span of 33 days before this year's total solar eclipse. And of course, the word eclipse equals 33. Atlanta is situated on the 33rd parallel. ATL equals 33. Their coach is Snitker, which equals 33. And check out how the city of Atlanta also syncs up with eclipse, 69 and 120. The Braves hadn't been to the World Series in 22 years. This was Brian Snitker's 22nd win in the playoffs with the Braves. And total solar eclipse equals 202, Braves 22. Another thing that stood out to me is that the Braves have the number 150 on their uniforms this year. And this is because it's their 150th anniversary, which is pretty wild for a pro sports team. Feels like this country's getting pretty old, hey? But 150, this is the Gematria of annular eclipse, 150. And this year, we had an annular solar eclipse on the date 610. And 610 is the 15th Fibonacci number. A lot like annular eclipse, summing to 150 on the date 610. Very strong alignments this year for the eclipses. Sorry if I'm taking a second. There's just so many things to look at. I'm trying to figure out where to go next. All right, so we talked about the number 89, how big that was. Well, the Atlanta Braves kicked off the World Series by throwing out starting pitcher Charlie Morton. And in the first game, the second inning, Charlie Morton got hit by a line drive in his leg, which ended up breaking his leg. He had to come out of the game a few batters later. And broken leg sums to 89 in Gematria. And on my channel, I have a video of how this is connected to this guy, Charlie Morton, who was a baseball executive from the 1800s. And his full name equals 89. Now notice how this guy's baseball card says Chaz Morton at the bottom of it. I guess this was his nickname, Chaz for Charlie. Well, notice how Chaz Morton equals 126. Like how Charlie Morton broke his leg on 10/26, October 26th. And this current Charlie Morton, notice how he's a fourth. Morton the fourth. This is also 126. The name Charlie 126. In Game 4, the Braves won because they became the first team to have their number 8 and number 9 hitters go back-to-back in a World Series to hit home runs. The number 8, number 9 hitters. And then in the next game, they hit a grand slam, and grand slam equals 89. And there's been a big grand slam riddle this year as well. The Red Sox this year became the first team to hit 3 grand slams in one playoff series. And they became the first team since the 99 Braves to hit 3 grand slams in a single postseason. The 99 Braves, which of course was the last time that team went to the World Series. 89 has matching gematria with Boston Red Sox and grand slam. In reduction, broken leg equals 44. Charlie Morton broke his leg 44 days before the 100th anniversary of the death of Charlie Morton. And what's so wildly insane about this sync with Charlie Morton? Well, you have the fact that this guy was born on December 9th, 1921. This is a palindromic number. If you write it out, you'll see. 1291921. It's the same forward and backwards. That's the date this guy died, right? And if you measure from his birthday, or I'm sorry, the date he died, to the birthday of Charlie Morton, oh, I'm sorry, it was from his birthday, October 12th, 1854. To Charlie Morton's birthday, you get exactly 129 years, 1 month, which again is the palindrome, basically, of the date that this guy died. So what in the world is going on here? Now, I pointed out how his nickname was Chaz Morton. Chaz? How many people do you know named Chaz? Well, the first guy that Charlie Morton faced with a broken leg was named Chaz McCormick, a hitter for the Houston Astros. What the odds of this are, I don't know. They're astronomical. To me, this is evidence of something a little deeper going on with numerology. Like, to me, the game looked like it was probably rigged with some of the meatballs that Houston was throwing over the plate. You know, these things definitely seem set up, but again, why is numerology important? It's because all the while there's also significant organic synchronicities occurring as well. Now, I think this was probably organic, and I'll explain a few reasons why. Again, right here, we're looking at Charlie Morton throwing a ball to Yuri Gurriel, who swings at it and hits a 107-mile-an-hour comebacker that strikes Charlie Morton in the leg. And this was like a fracture, I guess, where it fractured the bone. He kept trying to play on it, and eventually it gave out. And the reason I don't think that something like this is rigged, like a lot of people tell me it is because if you're going to throw a pitch with something meant to happen, it's going to be a lot easier than this. Like the home runs last night that were being thrown were meatballs. You had 95-mile-an-hour fastballs right at the top of the strike zone in the middle. You had some 83-mile-an-hour changeups right in the middle of the plate. But on this ball, you have a 96-mile-an-hour two-seam fastball with like 2 feet of break on it. And I'm not going to get into the whole mechanics of baseball, but people who played the game know that that's a hell of a lot of movement. And, yeah, it just seems like he threw his leg out there to try and stop. But I don't know. Maybe I'm the fool, right? Could be. So Morton's broken leg was certainly a wild incident. And again, I made a video on that one as well. Pretty good one, I think. So you guys can check that out. So the broken leg equals 44. And 44 was the other main massive number coded into this World Series. And this all traces back to the death of Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron wore number 44, and his number 44 is retired in the state of Georgia, which equals 44, as well as Wisconsin, 44. Now, Hank Aaron, his number 44, also etched into the outfield grass in Atlanta. The Braves have number 44 stitched on their hats this year. They beat the Milwaukee Brewers in the playoffs. The Brewers are the other team that Hank Aaron played for, and they also had a 44 patch on their uniforms. The grand slam that was hit in Game 5 was hit by Adam Duvall, who was exactly 44 weeks before his birthday. And that was his 34th birthday coming up. The word Hank equals 34. Duvall was born on 4/9, the 4th of September. Aaron equals 4/9. So that was a big Hank Aaron tribute. Last night, the winning pitcher in the clinching game was Max Fried. And check out how his name equals 44. Game 4, by the way, was won with a home run by Dansby Swanson, and his name equals 44. Also, check out Adam Duvall's age when he hit this grand slam. 33 years and 57 days. That's the reduction value of Eclipse, as well as the ordinal value in Hebrew. And his name equals Eclipse, 156 and 222. All connected to this same code we've been looking at. And I may not have mentioned, look at the Gematria of Grand Slam. 44 and 404. World Series Game 6 last night was 40 weeks and 4 days after Hank Aaron's death, from 122. "40 weeks and 4 days. You may have also caught the 9/11. That's always a big one. So then the following night, actually the same night that Adam Duvall hit his grand slam, that was Game 5. That game ended with a score of 9-5. And remember, I predicted the Braves would lose in Game 5 and win in Game 6. Well, I predicted they'd win in Game 6, so they'd have to lose in Game 5. So even after that grand slam was hit, I was like, well, the Astros are just going to keep hitting. And sure enough, 9-5 they come back. And why is this 9-5 score so fascinating? Well, we begin with the fact that the last time the Braves won the World Series was in the year 95. And in the reverse alphabetic order, Braves sums to 95. This game that ended 9-5 was exactly 9,500 days after the Braves won the 95 World Series. This year, the Astros won 95 games during the season. The Braves clinched the National League pennant with their 95th win, so they entered the World Series with 95 wins. And then remember Charlie Morton? Look at Charlie Morton's record as a pitcher, the guy who broke his leg. He has 95 career losses. He's also won 107 games. We talked about this number earlier. But not only did the Astros win 9-5, but their starting pitcher was number 59, and the losing pitcher was 59 days after his birthday, the inverse of 95. Atlanta, Georgia equals 59. And this game was played just a couple days after we learned about the death of Ernie Johnson's son, and the name Johnson equals 95. Remember, his dad played for the Braves and won a World Series in 1957. The general manager of the Braves, Alex Anthopoulos, hired in 2017. His name has Gematria of 995. And I'm going to have to bring up this image again. So look at how many wins in the playoffs the Astros have all time now. 66 with 69 losses. The word eclipse equals 66 and 69. All time, look at Dusty Baker's postseason record as a manager, 40 and 44. So this is part of that constant 444 code we've been looking at. In fact, yesterday, I made a post where I mentioned how Hank equals 444. And one of the Braves players, Ozzie Albies, who played a big role in last night's game, he scored essentially the winning run of the World Series. His name equals 444. Now, remember in the Super Bowl this past season, Coach Andy Reid, whose son died exactly 444 weeks before the Super Bowl, they lost the game, giving the Chiefs their 444th franchise loss. So a lot of 444s going on. Some other wild alignment with the Braves. So we talked about how 95 is such a big number to this. And look at the gematria of 95, 129. This 129 again, this was the number that connected Charlie Morton to this Charlie Morton. Remember 129, December 9th, 1921. So the Braves last won in 95, but they last made the World Series in 99, which also has gematria of 129. And this number is so heavily coded into the Braves this year, it's unreal. We start with their star player, Freddie Freeman, the franchise guy. Look at his birthday. 12/9 of 1989, the 12th of September. And look at his birth numerology, 129. So he plays first base. The second baseman, Ozzie Albies, his name equals 129. And he was exactly 1,295 weeks old last night when they clinched. Remember, this 129 is the same digits as the word eclipse, 192. The Braves won their 10,920th game in franchise history last night. But let's work our way across the infield for the Braves, right? So Freddie Freeman, what about the third baseman, Austin Riley? On the date that they won the World Series, this guy was, let's see, what was it? Oh, did I have this wrong? I must have. It must have been Dansby Swanson, the shortstop. I'll come back to this guy. Dansby Swanson. 2/11/94, the shortstop who hit a home run in last night's game. He has 126 birth numerology. Very similar. And he was 10,126 days old. Look at that. $4,297. Oh, here's the one with Austin Riley. Yeah, I must have had that wrong. Well, you talk about numbers for an hour, you're bound to make one mistake. Jock Peterson, also, by the way, 29 years, 195 days old. The Braves' first home game in the World Series was on October 29th, written 10/29. And this brings us to the big riddle with Joe Biden visiting the Pope at the Vatican on October 29th. Again, this was the same day that we learned about the death of Ernie Johnson's son. So President and Francis and Vatican all sum to 47 like beast. It's Revelation 4:7 that describes the beasts. Joe Biden's birthday of 2011, November 20th, very similar to the Lateran Treaty date, which was February 11th, which established the Vatican in Rome. And that date can be written 211. Catholicism 112. 666 211. Very important number to this one. And this is all about the Catholic Church and the Jesuit order, whose motto has matching gematria with the Synagogue of Satan 1201, the same digits as their birthdays. Now, when we write out 666 in Jewish gematria, we get this value of 2083. And this is a super important number. The moon, summing to 283, again, 666. This 2083 is the 314th prime number. And, of course, 314, the first three digits of pi. And the word eclipse even equals 314 in Satanic gematria. But this 283 alignment is just massive. Now, I've been doing this blog a long time. I don't think I've ever had 5 date-to-date measurements, which are virtually the exact same for one story. Joe Biden's birthday falls 283 days after the date that the Vatican was established. His meeting with the Pope was 28 weeks and 3 days before the next total lunar eclipse. He was 28,833 days old for this meeting, and it was also he and Kamala's 283rd day in office. And then the following day, check out how old Kamala Harris was, 20,830 days old. Really, really wild stuff. And of course, her birthday has the 201 connection to 666, the Jesuit order, the name of their pope, the founder of the order. And let us never forget Event 201, the coronavirus pandemic simulation, which happened about a month before the quote-unquote actual breakout. And when you measure from the start of the pandemic, according to Trump's national emergency, which fell on the date 1303, March 13th, it was 1 year and 33 weeks, and coronavirus equals 1303. Now, Joe Biden, he's the 46th president. Catholic equals 46. He's the first Catholic president since the 35th president, JFK. And when JFK met with the Pope, look how old he was. 46 years and 35 days. John F. Kennedy has matching gematria with Roman Catholic Church even. The date of JFK's meeting with the Pope was the 2nd of July, or 2/7. The date can also be written 7/2, and it had numerology of 72. Measuring from that date to Biden's visit, you get 119 days or 246 days to the anniversary. These are numbers special to the Vatican, Francis, and the Catholic Church. Now, I pointed out the date of the Lateran Treaty, and the Lateran Treaty was signed in 1929. And think about how close these two numbers are, right? 1029, the date of his visit. 1929, the date of the Lateran Treaty. These numbers have the same numerology. They reduce to the same number as well, 3. Well, the Lateran Treaty has gematria of 1046. And this can be converted to a date, the 14th of June. And the 14th of June is the birthday of Donald Trump, who that same very day happened to visit the World Series and attended Game 4 in Atlanta. Now, I have a video on Trump's visit. It's essentially the same ritual as this whole death of Ernie Johnson's son. Ernie Johnson's son died of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Dr. Duchenne died 146 years ago. The name Michael Johnson equals 146. So does Ernie Johnson, 146. And let's talk about the death of Michael Johnson, who suffered from Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Michael died at the age of 33. And again, his father is Ernie Johnson, broadcaster for TNT. Can I not find this guy? Here he is. Now, Ernie Johnson works for TNT, which just turned 33 years old. And in Gematria, Turner equals 33. His father played for the Atlanta Braves. ATL equals 33 on the 33rd parallel. And his son died exactly a span of 33 weeks before his dad's birthday. The word son also equals 33. Ernie 33, Michael 33, Johnson's 33. Of course, 33, a lunar eclipse number. And in ordinal, 33 sums to 156. An eclipse always occurs every 1, 5, or 6 lunar phases after the most recent one. And the Hebrew word for eclipse, which more directly translates to like impairment or occultation, is 156. Of course, no mistake. Eclipse the sun, 156. Plane of the sun, 156. So measuring from the last total lunar eclipse to the death of this Michael Johnson, it was 156 days. And cementing that this was a lunar eclipse riddle, lunar eclipse has gematria of 135 and 533. And his death fell 135 days after the birthday of Ernie Johnson Sr. and 533 weeks after his death. Donald Trump equals 138, just like Michael. And Donald Trump was 138 days after his birthday when he went to the World Series. And how about this? The fact that the visiting starting pitcher for the Astros, that was Zach Greinke. And did you know that Zach Greinke's real first name is Donald? So Trump goes to the game to watch Donald pitch? As far as why Atlanta is so significant to these Jesuit order and Catholic Church riddles, Atlanta equals 69 like Eclipse, and 69 is the sum of Catholic Church in reduction. It's also the sum of the Jesuit order. We're going to look at a super deep eclipse riddle towards the end of this video involving Donald Trump with one of his wives, Marla Maples, and how this whole affair was completely by the numbers. But before we do, we have to expand on this whole riddle. There's so many things I haven't touched on that I need to yet. All right. Can't believe how many tabs I got open for this video. Sorry, guys. Just give me a sec here. All right. Jorge Soler. We talked about how this was a solar eclipse riddle. And then we get an MVP named Soler. And check out the name Soler. 69. With the S exception, you get the 33. The same numbers as Atlanta and Eclipse. Now, the World Series was clinched on a date with 54 numerology, and this is a number connected to the sun. Sun equals 54, so does baseball in multiple methods. Jesuit order equals 54 as well. And Jorge Soler was the 54th prime number of days after his birthday during last night's game when he hit a 3-run home run to clinch the game. Jorge Soler was also born in the year 95, unsurprisingly. And he was a span of 8 months and 9 days after his birthday. There's that 89 again, right? The Jesuit order also established on the date, leaving 95 days in the year. Last night's game was 95 days after Jorge Soler was traded to the Braves. That happened on July 30th. Last night was also 95 days before the birthday of Hank Aaron. And this brings us to a strong 666 connection. Jorge Soler's full name has matching gematria with 666, which also sums to 95 and 122, connecting us to Hank Aaron. Soler's full name sums to 283. And remember, we talked about this number as it was connected to 666 and the moon. This is also the 61st prime number. The word church equals 61. The series ended in Game 6, which equals 666. This is the 36th triangular number. The game was 36 days after the Jesuit anniversary, and it was the 306th day of the year. See how Jorge Castillo's full name has matching Sumerian gematria with the Latin value of Society of Jesus, 1698. So we talk about all of this stuff connected to Hank Aaron. Well, in the description below, I have another video linked back from January of this year. Hank Aaron, remarkably, died the same weekend that the man who drafted Aaron Rodgers passed away. Hank Aaron died in the city of Atlanta, Georgia, while Ted Thompson died in the city of Atlanta, Texas, where he was born. And Aaron Rodgers plays football in the same state that Hank Aaron finished his career, Wisconsin. And then this year we had the Milwaukee Bucks play the Atlanta Hawks in the playoffs. And then we had the Milwaukee Brewers play the Atlanta Braves in the playoffs. Wisconsin, Georgia. Again, the only two states that sum to 44. Both governors, by the way, Tony Evers in Wisconsin, his name is 44, so is Brian. Well, the name Brian equals 44 ordinal, but what the hell is that guy's last name? I'm blanking. Brian Kemp. 44. Oh, he's got that 89 too, the governor of Georgia. How appropriate. So Hank Aaron dies on January 22nd, or 122. Well, look at Aaron Rodgers' birthday, 12-2, like 122. And now the day after the Braves win the World Series, as a riddle connected to Hank Aaron, we learn that Aaron Rodgers gets COVID-19. And now he's not going to be able to play against Kansas City, which equals 122. This news falls 1 month and 22 days after the Packers' first game of the season. One of the biggest numbers of the coronavirus pandemic, which began in the year 2020, is 220. Of course, National Football League equals 220, 22 players on the field. This Packers-Chiefs game falls 20,020 days after the first Super Bowl, where the Packers played the Chiefs. This news is 30 days before Aaron Rodgers' birthday. Corona equals 30. And just think about today's date, right? November 3rd, 11/3. The World Health Organization decided that coronavirus was a global pandemic on the date 3/11, March 11th. And this game that Aaron Rodgers can't play in will now be the I'm sorry, the 311th day of the year. Aaron Rodgers just came off his 133rd career victory against the Arizona Cardinals. Think about Cardinals in relation to the Jesuit order. The Jesuit order with the sun and the corona as its emblem. Coronavirus 1303. And this news was also 13 weeks and 3 days before Hank Aaron's birthday. Now again, this was the 117th World Series. The same year as the Field of Dreams game, 117. The word quarterback equals 117. And this game that Aaron Rodgers got taken out of falls on November 7th, 11/7. And this will be the first game started by Jordan Love. So Love equals 54 in both ordinal and reverse. The planet of love, Venus, is 54 in reverse. And November 7th is the date that leaves 54 days on the calendar. Now, what's so funny about this whole thing is Jordan Love just celebrated his birthday yesterday, the date that the Braves won the World Series. November 2nd. What are the odds? And then the coach of the Packers, Matt LaFleur, was born today, November 3rd. Well, he wasn't born today. His birthday's today. Come on. So Jordan Love born the 2nd, Matt LaFleur the 3rd. The Braves win the World Series on the 2nd, and now Aaron Rodgers announced out on the 3rd. Notice how these two men, Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love, were born almost exactly 19 years apart. And this is a story about COVID-19. The Green Bay Packers, founded in the year 1919. Aaron Rodgers, destined for football greatness, he was born on the date leaving 29 days in the year 83. And the word football equals 29 and 83. 83 is also the ordinal value of Hank Aaron and the reduction value of Jordan Alexander Love. 83. In reduction, Jordan Love equals 44, just like Packers, who play at Lambeau, 44. Remember last night's pitcher was Max Fried, 44. The Braves manager, Brian Snitker, has been with the organization for 44 years, which is a huge part of this riddle, and I keep glossing over because there's so many things in my head with this crap. But thinking of Jordan Love, right? Remember, Jordan Love was drafted the same week that The Last Dance came out. And The Last Dance is when the country fell back in love with Jordan. This documentary about the Bulls began April 19th, which is the first day of Taurus, which is the bull sign. And then exactly 1 year later, we learn about the death of the son of Scottie Pippen at age 33. And Scottie Pippen wore number 33 for the Bulls, which equals 33. Michael Jordan is probably a huge part of this riddle. Check this out. Michael Jordan, born February 17th, 1963. This means that when the Braves clinched the World Series, he was 21,444 days old. Look at that. And then today's date, when we find out that Jordan Love is taking over, we get another 444. His birthday also connects to Aaron because it's the 17th of February, 17/2, Aaron 172. Now, I presume that the Atlanta Braves winning the World Series is part of this big riddle connected to the Georgia Guidestones and the depopulation agenda currently playing out through multiple methods. You know, we have this COVID-19 thing, and a lot of people want to say that COVID-19 is fake, I don't believe COVID-19 is fake. I do believe the viral aspect of it, this contagious virus that causes people to lose breath, there's deception going on there. And I'll leave it at that because I'm not a doctor. But then you also have the rollout of the COVID vaccines, and hey, for many people, the vaccines have been deadly. That's certainly one method. But one of the scariest things about the potential effects of these vaccines is what it means many years down the road. And, is there a method of infertility with the vaccines as well? Are people going to have a hard time reproducing in another 10, 20 years? I think it's all working together, and that depopulation agenda was etched into the Georgia Guidestones. And these Georgia Guidestones are in, of course, Georgia, not far from Atlanta. But check out how the Georgia Guidestones are tucked very neatly just inside the path of the 2017 total solar eclipse that went over the United States. And this other image here shows just how close to the edge it was, which to me demonstrates that this is a nod that this is important, right? In Gematria, the Georgia Guidestones sums to 233, and that eclipse that passed over the Guidestones was on the 233rd day of the year. Remember, this is the value of 1331. 1331 equals 233, and the year 1331 was the year that the Black Death Plague outbreak pandemic began. Now, Wikipedia will say it's 1346, but this is referring to the European or the Eurasian Black Death Plague. If you really dig, you find a lot of sources that say it began in 1331. And this is, of course, the year of the big great eclipse that never touched a body of water. This huge 1331 discovery is the post that I probably link the most. And here's a look at the 1331 eclipse. In Gematria, 1331 eclipse equals 1331, so does November 30th, the date that it occurred. Twin eclipses equals 1331, and now we get a new pandemic at the midway point of these twin eclipses. In fact, the vaccine was approved for emergency use on December 14th of 2020, which was the exact halfway point of these two eclipses. Measuring from the erection of the Georgia Guidestones to the eclipse that passed over them was exactly 13,666 days. And this 13 is significant because 233 is the 13th Fibonacci number. The Guidestones opened in 1980. Beast equals 198, 666, the number of the beast. The vaccine was approved by the FDA on the 23rd of August, which was Kobe Bryant's birthday. 666, 2038, like 238. And, of course, 666 coded into the distance, the moon to the earth, an average of 238,000 miles. Kobe Bryant was born on 23/8, the same day of the approval, and Kobe Bryant was buried in Corona del Mar. So there's a lot more coding in here as far as the city that it went into, Elberton, Georgia, 153. Again, the Guidestone's 153 days before the date of the eclipse. And look at how the Georgia Guidestones equals 334. 334 is the inverse of solar eclipse, 433. And then we have the winning coach, Snitker, Brian Snitker of the Braves. His name equals 334. And his name equals 33, like eclipse. So, is the Georgia Guidestones a clue for the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak and response? Yes, 100% yes. This is connected. It's a massive riddle. And what I didn't even mention is that these two American eclipses are separated by 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days. That's right. If you go to my calculator and tack on the end date, punch in the first Great American Eclipse date, add 6 years, 6 months, 6 weeks, and 6 days, and look at this. You get April 8th, 2024, which is the date of that second eclipse. "666 revealed in Revelation. COVID-19 equals revelation in Gematria. One of those numbers is 1010, and it began in 2020, which is the first multiple of 1010. An event I more or less predicted. I didn't know it would be a pandemic, but I called out the year, the location, and everything. All right. So actually, this is going to prove to be a good segue. So the number I led my Georgia Guidestones post off with was 223, because the Guidestones were erected on 22/3, the 22nd of March, or 322. And this is a big skull and crossbones number of death. Notice how population control also equals 223. The moon equals 223 in Hebrew, and that's because a Saros cycle is a period of 223 lunar phases. So in this last part of the video here, I'm going to do a very, very deep dive into eclipse numerology. And I'm even going to incorporate this massive eclipse spreadsheet that I have, which has more information than I will ever need or even understand. But I built some really cool tools that I'm going to be incorporating into the website before long. And I also built this table which highlights all the different Saros series and focuses on the ones that are active. So the guys, the people who really nerd out on my videos are going to like this part of it. Before I get to this spreadsheet, though, I want to talk about how this Saros cycle riddle is important to Donald Trump. Now remember, Donald Trump, born on the date of a total lunar eclipse. And he is more coded with the Saros cycles than I would have ever guessed. So excuse me while I get on the diving board here, but we're definitely going into the deep end. If you don't like this part of it, turn the video off. But here goes. So Donald Trump's affair with Marla Maples, I believe, is a 100% total solar eclipse riddle. It occurred from 1991 until their divorce in 1999. Now, the name Marla Maples has matching 220 gematria with Donald John Trump. And 22 is a number connected to the total solar eclipse code, 202. Marla Maples has interesting MM initials, right? 1313 MM. Well, the number 13 is the 6th prime number. And notice how Marla Maples' birthday falls a span of 136 days after Donald Trump's. Now, if you don't include the end date, you get 135. That's also super significant to this, but I'll get there in a bit. We're focusing on the 136. Now, before we explain Saros series 136, again, what is a Saros series? Well, a Saros series is a period of 223 synodic months. So every time we have an eclipse, if you go forward or backward 223 lunar phases, there will be another eclipse. And eclipses occur every 1, 5, or 6 lunar phases. So that means there's many active Saros cycles. And this table here breaks down all the Saros cycles that have ever been recorded, starting with -13. You have to appreciate that they started with 13, right? The most recent Saros cycle to end is 116, which is an upside-down 911. The 156th prime number is 911. the next Saros cycle, or I'm sorry, the most recent Saros cycle to begin is 156. So these just prove that we are in a super significant time. All of these systems were created for this period of time. So you'll see there's, and you would think these Saros cycles are chronological, but they're not really. So for instance, notice how this one starts in 557, and then the next one starts in the year 550. Well, this one does end after the one before it, but you'll notice the next one ends before it. So it's not quite sequential. Like there's a little bit of perhaps numerology play going in here. There's no real science behind it. And when you look at the data, there's actually a lot of really interesting patterns that emerge. So one thing I noticed is that every 3 Saros cycles, there's almost no total eclipses, and it's almost all annular eclipses. And then every 3rd Saros also has close to 0 annular eclipses as you go down the list. And then the other 3rd is like an even split between total, annular, and partial eclipses. Occasionally you get a Saros cycle with a lot of hybrid eclipses. The Saros cycles that are currently active are highlighted green. So any eclipse that occurs within the next 18 years is going to belong to one of these 40 Saros cycles. I hope this is making sense. I myself just really started studying this, so I'm trying to kind of make as much sense of it as I can. So something very, very fascinating jumped out to me when I was studying this. And this is before my post on Donald Trump and Marla Maples. But check out Saros series 136. I couldn't believe this. The date that it begins is just one day after 13/6/1360. And this happens to be the Saros cycle, which experienced its middle eclipse in 1991, which was a massive event. And you'll see on my blog, I've done a lot of posts recently talking about how events around that time were connected to that eclipse. It was a really, really big eclipse. And middle eclipses are pretty rare. There wasn't one for almost 30 years before that. We didn't have another middle eclipse until June of last year. And that's when Donald Trump had his rally in Tulsa. And that was Saros series 137. And 137 is a huge number. Let me pull this up here. Total eclipse equals 137, the 33rd prime number. And we're in the COVID-19 pandemic. Trump's rally was like the first big public gathering after the pandemic broke, right? 137. But this alignment here just blew me away. 13/6/1360 began Saros series 136. And yes, it's June 14th, but it was really early in the day. So it was actually still the 13th of June in the West Coast of America. 1991 is the year that Donald Trump began his affair with Marla Maples. And notice how this Saros cycle, beginning on June 14th, which is Donald Trump's birthday. Donald Trump was born 586 years after the beginning of that Saros series. And his name equals 589 in Gematria. Again, that's 6 and 9 just flipped upside down. The 6th planet from the sun is Saturn. And Saturn's magic square has a sum of 45, these 9 squares here. The number 13 equals 45 in 2 methods of Gematria, forwards and backwards. And think about Trump, president number 45. Well, when he turned 45 years old, it was the year 1991, which is the year that he began his affair with Marla Maples, and he divorced Ivana Trump, whose name equals 45. He officially got married to Marla Maples in 93. Saturn equals 93. The sun an average of 93 million miles from Earth. So Trump has his affair in 91, the date of that middle eclipse. Check out the name Marla Maples, 666 and 1116. On the date of that middle eclipse in 1991, she was 10,119 days old. And then she got divorced from Donald in 1999. The name Donald equals 119. Marla Maples born on a date with 119 numerology. Total eclipse equals 9/11 in Greece, or Greek. And then this was, again, the last middle eclipse until Donald Trump took office. The name Marla Maples and Maples both match eclipse in Gematria. 33, 39, 69, 66. Now, as I mentioned earlier, her birthday is actually 135 days after Trump's without the end date. Now let's look back at this Saros series spreadsheet here. And check out Saros series 135. And look what year Saros 135 began in. It began in 1331, the year of the Black Death outbreak in China. Hubei, China, by the way, the same province where we got COVID. Now, something really fascinating popped out at me when I was studying these Saros cycles, and I forgot to bring my screen up. Sorry about that. Here's a look at the Saros 135, which began in 1331. Now, 135 is another big Saros number. And what I found is that when you measure from the beginning of one Saros cycle to the beginning of another Saros cycle, you very frequently get 135 lunar phases. In fact, it was like almost a quarter of the time. It was the most frequent number that was showing up. And I was like, wow, 135 is cool because the phrase lunar eclipse is 135. So is the phrase hybrid eclipse. And hybrid eclipses occur at the perfect point when the sun is like exactly 1/400th times away from the Earth than the moon is. And as far as 135, oh man, this is deep. But we talked about the Saros being 223 synodic months. Well, the number 223 first appears in pi at the 135th digit. 223 is the first number to sum to 314 in the alphabetic order. And 223 first appears in pi at the 135th digit. And then Trump's wife, Ivana Trump, equals 135 and 135. A lot to digest. Again, this is something I just recently started studying, but it blew my mind, and I felt like I had to share it because in light of all this confirmation that we're getting of the Eclipse Code with depopulation, the Guidestones, the Braves winning the World Series, etc., I just figured I'd do a little deep dive there. Whew. Yeah, a black hole is a good term for this research, too. You know, often I think about this image, right, of the Hubble telescope. I'm sure many of you guys have seen this picture. And basically what they did with the Hubble telescope, and I know a lot of people don't believe astronomy and whatnot, but this is how the universe works. You know, the deeper you look, the more you see. So basically they zoomed in on a black part of space for a while, just to see if they could see anything. And in this image, you see some stars which belong in our galaxy, but then you also see many other galaxies. And this just goes on forever. Because the longer you look, the further you look, the more you'll see. You will always see more, right? And I think this goes to the microcosm as well. The further you look inward, atomically, it looks similar. I guess the point I'm making is that with all of the numerology that's being used to control our mind, there's such a strong organic element to it, and it just makes me think of the Matrix. And is it possible that this Jesuit order, the Society of Jesus, these controlling authority figures, it's almost as if they have to exist as part of this matrix. Like the purpose of this matrix is to allow this evil to run rampant and control everything. And yeah, I get it. I'm the conspiracy theorist. But it's almost like this group has to exist to teach us about evil or something to that degree. I don't know how it works, but think about isn't it Agent Smith in that film? Isn't Smith 69? Yeah. See, Smith is 69. Like the Jesuit order, 69. Agent Smith equals 154. When was the Society of Jesus established? Officially in 1540, 154. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, I think this movie suggests that this Jesuit order is like an extension of the Matrix itself. I mean, perhaps we all are extensions of the Matrix itself, but it just makes me wonder. I mentioned something in a comment a couple days ago. I don't know how to bring this up, but I think it was the second Matrix film when Neo talks to the architect. And the architect is telling Neo about previous iterations of the Matrix and how they were insufficient because it was too utopian. There were no disasters. There was no tragedy. So the inhabitants of the Matrix were not fooled by this computer simulation that they were living in. And chaos erupted. So in future versions of the Matrix, they installed some sort of disaster code. Or they suggested as such anyway. And this disaster code allows for death, tragedy, evil. Now that's a cool line and theory in a movie, but is it actually more of a dissection of what our reality really is? Because, yeah, I mean, you can certainly make a case that these sports games are rigged. I think they are. Again, all you have to do in baseball is just not hit home runs for one team and then serve up softballs for the other team to hit. But things like Charlie Morton's broken leg, you know, I guess you could argue he didn't break his leg, but Chris Weidman definitely broke his leg, and that was by the numbers. I did a big video on that. So I think he really did. And to me, that's like residual magic from everything else that happens. Just my 2 cents. But yeah, I think that leg injury was 100% organic. And what I'm looking at with all these alignments and synchronicities when it comes to those incidents, I think we're kind of looking at that disaster code that the film The Matrix hints us at. I didn't expect to see Space Jam under Agent Smith. That's pretty funny, hey? Space Jam, really? Anyway, but yeah, I think that in our true reality, there is a disaster code. And let's say you or I were the first people with computers and the first people to look into Gematria. And we started making these observations, right? We're like, holy crap, you know, Ted got hurt the other day. while hunting this bear. And when we ran the numbers, we see the number 33 again. Then you start an organization and you take all those numbers you find in that disaster code and you stamp your organization with that. So that when disasters happen, everyone's like, hey, it's that society, right? It's the Jesuits. When really the Jesuits just found numbers that were significant to the disaster code and then stamped themselves with those numbers so that everyone like us thinks that they're doing it. Of course, the Jesuits are guilty of a lot of evils, and I will always work to expose them, but I don't think it's all them. There's too many things in my own life that happens. I'm not the only Gematria teacher who talks about things in this light. But yeah, I think this society, most of the stuff they create is just completely fake. And it's all to control our minds. Like, for instance, this Helena Hutchins thing. Did that really happen? Alec Baldwin? Maybe they really killed somebody, but to me that kind of thing is a hoax. And, all these people involved and participating in it, they're not experiencing a tragedy, but everyone who's reading the news every day is. They're creating this false reality, this false matrix. And, yeah. And this goes deeper, too. Like, someone in the chat is kind of pointing out, are these synchronicities actually the results of a controlling alien race that's sort of guiding human evolution to an extent? It's got to be. It's the only thing that makes sense to me, honestly. Is that there's forces of evil that don't want humanity to ascend, and there are forces that do. And you may call them aliens, I may call them interstellar forces. I don't know. We see these things like it's like supernova, galactic collapse, entire galaxies exploding. How do we know that doesn't affect us on Earth, All right, well, thanks for diving down this part of the rabbit hole with me. Again, a lot of my videos going forward will be little short clips meant for people to share and get a quick overload of information. My Patreon, I'm going to have different levels, so it'll be up to you guys for how much you want to contribute. One of the levels will be $2.33. Gematria is $2.33. And then there's going to be another one for $5.22, because that's my name. But yeah, there's going to be a number of things I'm going to be trying to do to make money, because I'm still not working, and I can't go back to GE, even though I think this federal vaccine mandate thing will collapse anyway. I have no intention of working for the corporate world again. I want to keep working on this, making videos, waking people up. And again, I know it's been a while that I've been doing this without a job. For those of you new to this channel, I worked for GE Healthcare up until June of this year, when I realized that the company had extremely different values than I did. And on top of that, the medical industry is extremely corrupt. And it's not necessarily people making backhanded deals or cheating. It's just that the industry is set up to make so much profit, it's ridiculous. So I made my profit out of the industry, and now I'm trying to use that profit so that I can use my time to help wake people up into this stuff. Because it's fascinating. Blows me away. Okay, I think that's going to do it for the stream. Thanks to everybody again for listening to my theories, because if there's anything I've learned about this study, it's that anyone who claims to know everything they're the people that you can trust the least. And my tone has changed over the years about what we're looking at. Because, yes, amongst all the evils, I've also seen plenty of goods. Now, I don't always do videos on good things. It's hard to do Gematria on good things because people don't go looking for good things. I guess you can argue that the Braves World Series was a good thing for a lot of people. But, yeah, these sports are really, really coded, and I think sports are one of the ways to wake people up the best, for sure. But yeah, I'm glad to be out of GE. More than happy. I had all sorts of issue with security there. Like, the guy who ran security was certainly a Masonic policeman who was actively telling his employees to not ask about the truth. Oh my God, I got to get into that someday. It's so wild. All right, but yeah, that'll do it. So thanks again. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.